Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Pirate Radio. I am your host who needs no introduction, and you're not going to get one. And mainly because the 8 people watching this probably already know who I am, and most of us have probably actually met in person. So there's that. On this episode, we are going to talk about the state of speech in the United States and the West more broadly. But before that, a couple of things that I wanted to hit right quick. One is Ace Frehley passed away this week. Apparently, he had a nasty little spill at the age of 74 in a studio and never recovered. And his family made the really bad, hard decision, I should say. Not a bad decision, but a hard decision to pull the plug on the star child. So, rest in peace, Mr. Ace Frehley. If you don't know who Ace Frehley is, that's your problem. And should probably rectify that. And breaking fairly recently, I'm not sure what point this story actually broke, but I think this man will owe Tucker Carlson, he'll owe Donald Trump, but he owes Tucker Carlson and representative from Tennessee, I believe, Tim Burchett, a debt of gratitude. George Santos just had his sentence commuted and is to be released immediately under orders of one President Donald J. Trump. So good for you, George Santos. If you're, from what I understand, George had been he had been in prison, convicted somewhat dubiously. Feels like a political thing, but that stuff happens, right, Trump? Since he had been in prison, he had been in solitary confinement for 23 hours a day, 7 days a week, which seems cruel and unusual. But hey. So George is getting out immediately. I don't know if that means now or like tomorrow, but good for him. Anyway, moving on to what we're going to talk about in the state of speech in the West and the United States, all of that. There's a series of events that have happened recently, some of which have been covered by the corporate media and some other outlets, and some of which really have not. I only found out about them because of just the different sources that I listen to have talked about it. And so if we're going to, basically, I would assume anyone listening to this is a proponent of free speech. And I don't mean speech that you like. I mean true, unadulterated free speech. I hate the term hate speech. Yes, I understand that pun. It was intended. Hate speech is one of these words, one of these phrases that's made up. It's political talk, and it is used to control your speech and your thoughts and your actions. It's much like gun violence is a made-up term. Any number of things are political and made-up terms used to control you, used to make you control your thoughts, your actions, and most importantly, usually how you vote. Because politicians make up these nonsensical phrases that sound kind of okay if you don't think about them, and they're non-offensive necessarily. They don't really raise an eyebrow. It takes the kind of red-pilled mind and eye and ear to even think about what the term gun violence, what does that even mean? Terrorism is another one, or terrorist, I should say. Terrorism has a definition. Terrorist is kind of open to interpretation, much, I think we've all heard the saying that one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. But a term like gun violence or hate speech, what does that mean? There's no definition of what that actually is. You can say, oh, well, gun violence is when a gun is used to violence another person. Or, okay, is it still gun violence if it is a self-delete scenario? Is it still gun violence if it is a officer-involved justified shooting? Is it still gun violence if it is a home intruder justified, defending your life, your family's life, property, what have you? Is that still gun violence, or is that just the use of a gun in a just manner? I don't understand what the term gun violence means other than control of the sheep, apparently. So we use these, I'm not super up to date on the Machiavellians, but I do understand a little bit about them. And one of the Machiavellian techniques, it's also kind of rules for radicals, which probably comes most likely from the Machiavellian strategy. And is speech is used to manipulate. It is used for an outcome. And much like the rules for radicals, they're planning on your outcome. And that's why they do the thing that they do. So with speech, it's we say things to control what you say and do. That's what the Machiavellians basically do. So I'm going to use a term if I'm a Machiavellian or a politician. I'm going to use a term like hate speech when you say something critical of, I don't know, a gay person. And you're going to say that even though your critique of said gay person, like George Santos is a gay man, you could critique George Santos all day long for his policy positions, even his stories, his lies that he told, the election, any number of things he's done in his life. And under the left, which is the basically the Machiavellians in this, if you were to be critical of him and he was on their side, they would say that you're a homophobe, even though you didn't say anything about his actual sexual preference. It just so happens that he is a homosexual. Therefore, any critique of his, whether true, untrue, fabricated, just reaching out on a limb, they would say that that is homophobic. We've all heard instances of this happening. We've all seen it happen. Anytime anyone criticized Barack Obama, it was like, oh, well, it's because he's black. Or maybe it's because he's a really terrible person, and anybody with half a brain, especially now with hindsight, can see what a horrible person he really truly is. He is a true example of the rules for radicals Machiavellian figure that exists in the political sphere. It just so happens that he is in a very easy to digest package of a very, what would you say, a suave, charming, very well spoken, very educated, very soft pill to swallow, and that is the perfect recipe for your country or you or society or anything being infiltrated and destroyed from within. So now that we understand how words are used from the other side to, I'm not even going to say my side, just maybe us normal people who like to think freely and say things freely for ourselves. That's so with this basic understanding of how speech is manipulation, we can get a little further into this whole thing. And I'm going to pick on the United Kingdom because one, F you. Two, you've gotten 2 losses. And 3, you've lost your ever loving fucking minds. You're not allowed in the UK to post on social media anything critical of LGBT, QIA, blah, 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 the refugees in their country, the immigrants, the illegal immigrants, the migrants, any of those things. If you do any of those things, if you post them on social media, mainly Facebook, which apparently is a big deal over there in jolly old England, the police are going to show up to your house and at least question you. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 12,000 arrests for social media posts in the United Kingdom. That's insane. So there is no free speech in the United Kingdom, in Britain more broadly, or more locally, I should say. They've arrested people for putting up the English flag, for flying the English flag, by saying that this is some form of hate speech. This is a hate crime now. Flying your country's flag. That's insane. The other part about the social media posts is, don't think for a second that the social media companies aren't involved in this wholeheartedly. Zuckerberg or whomever could very easily just leave the UK or say, no, I'm not going to comply. You do whatever you want to do. That's fine with us. Shut us down, do whatever. But he doesn't do that. Because even though he came out a few months ago after Trump won and talked about how he's a free speech, this, that, or the other, he's a fucking liar. He's not for free speech. Go on Facebook. Unfortunately, I'm forced to be on Facebook for certain reasons that are going to go unsaid. When you're on Facebook, it is absolutely horrible because there's going to be one side in any sort of political discourse, any sort of anything. There's going to be one side that's allowed. The second you push back with any sort of actual pushback against that from the opposite side, guess what's going to happen? These are the people who claim that Twitter's become this hellhole, this hellscape. It's just right full of Nazis and it's right full of racists and this, that, and the other. When they're not on Blueski looking for like young kids to do whatever with, they stumble back on Twitter and like, oh, I hate this so much because blah blah blah. They're the same people who are hanging out on Facebook and everybody's just buying into it and doing all that. So, one of my podcasts that I listen to on the regular, I enjoy the podcast. I don't always agree with the guys, but the Trigonometry, I've brought them up before. I really enjoy their podcast. Their ads are terrible, but most ads on podcasts are terrible and annoying and all of those things. But I like those guys. I like the variety of people they have on. They have a lot of people from the UK and surrounding areas, England, UK, what have you, on there. So I kind of get exposed to people I'm not normally exposed to when I listen to, the Rogans, the Corollas, the, Part of the Problem, what have you. Enter other podcasts that I listen to here. One of the recurring themes with those guys, and if you're not familiar, Trigonometry is they're British. They both live in England. I think both live around London, what have you. But they're on the ground zero of this nonsense happening out of the UK. So one of the recurring themes with these guys, especially Konstantin Kassin, is he is for free speech, but he's not a free speech absolutist. And basically what he'll say is that any sort of speech that incites violence or what have you or hurts another person, he's not for. Well, this is what you get, Konstantin. This is exactly where it all goes, because the only speech, look, you can shout fire in a theater. That, I don't understand why no one corrects the retards that say you can't shout fire in a theater. You most certainly can, and it has been upheld by the Supreme Court that you shouting fire in a theater, albeit probably not a smart thing to do or a nice thing to do, is legal because it's speech. Just because you yell fire in a theater doesn't mean everyone has to stampede everyone trying to get the hell out of there. You have eyes, you have ears, you have any number of things you can use. You have a nose, which you could smell smoke, but you could look and go, oh, hey, I don't see a fire. Maybe I'm just going to walk out of here, or maybe I'm going to hang out and wait for, I don't know, a fire alarm that's required in every goddamn building in this country. I don't know. Maybe. But you can yell fire in a theater. I am of the belief that you can tell someone to do something to another person, and if that person then goes and does it, it was that person who committed the act's fault. Now, I hear people going, well, we have libel laws and we have slander laws. Yes, those are civil things. You can libel and slander a person. That is a civil affair. Yes, I also know there is a federal law on the books, I think, against libel and slander. Those are unconstitutional. That's how it is. You don't have to like it, but that's truth. That is 100% truth, and I just spoke it. So that's what it is. So we understand. Look no further than all of these things right here. There is no like common ground with quote unquote gun control. They use the term, another nonsensical term, is common sense gun reform. They used to say gun control, they used to say common sense gun control, and now they soften it again to common sense gun reform. Just like with the climate debate, it keeps ever evolving to soften. So when you get clunked over the head, it doesn't hurt as bad. At least the words were nice when the guy shows up at your door to confiscate your weapons, kills your dog, kills your wife, and wounds you. At least they use really nice words for their predicate to do it. So this is where you inevitably end up. I mentioned some things that have happened here recently that are very concerning to me. One of the things is there's the text scandals that are happening between they're unrelated but related all in the same. So there's a attorney general candidate in the state of Virginia. No, I'm not going to call it a commonwealth. You're a state. In the state of Virginia, there's a attorney general candidate named Jay Jones, who you can go look it up. I'm not going to put it up here. It's pretty obvious. It's been all over the place. Anybody can find it pretty easy. But Jay Jones sent a series of text messages to a former, at the time, was a Republican rep. Jay Jones is a Democrat. At the time, he was serving in the House of Representatives there, or the legislature of Virginia, and one of his colleagues, who was Republican, they were texting back and forth, in which Jay Jones made series of threats and wished death upon another. At the time, the Speaker of the legislature wished death upon his children because of the father and mother's actions, said that they were Nazis and they're raising little fascists. Not only did he wish death on the father, he wished death on the children, who at the time were 2 and 5 years old. Doesn't really matter if they're 2 and 5 or 12 or 15. That's kind of out of crazy land right there. So he did that. He's still in the race for AG. He's going to follow through in the race. Very good chance he could win. I don't know. This may cost him the race for AG. Very powerful office when you're the top cop, quote unquote, in a state or in a country. The attorney general almost in effect runs a state. They run the criminal courts. They run everything that way. They don't have to work with the governor. So it's a big time powerful position. On the flip side of that, you had all of these, and this had corporate media coverage out the wazoo. You had this group of young Republicans from, I think, Kansas was one that I saw, very overweight American Indian fellow, which is kind of redundant at this point. Apparently, basically, they had a, oh God, not a Slack channel. They were on, damn it, I forgot what app that they were on, Signal, I believe. But they had a group chat going on, which they said a whole bunch of horrible things, which corporate media, welcome to dudes. That's basically a whole bunch of dudes in a group chat saying what dudes say, but this was in text message form, so there's a record of it. This is the quote-unquote locker room talk, which is a thing. This is what dudes say when they're around each other, talking about, going to send someone to the gas chamber if they did X, Y, or Z, and use some, what they're calling racial language about watermelon eaters. I don't know. I eat watermelon, so I don't know what that means necessarily. But they said any number. They're shit posting in a text chain, in a group chat. They're shit posting. That's what they're doing. They leaked it. This got widespread coverage in Politico, the New York Times, corporate media. Oh my God, I can't believe how horrible they are. And here's where it really turns itself, is that you have other Republicans come out and condemning them for this. Mind you, no one has condemned Jay Jones. No one on a top level, no one on a bottom level. No one has condemned Jay Jones for wishing death upon children of a colleague and political rival, him, his family, basically wanting them dead. No one has said anything to him. But these guys shit posting in a Signal chat, which is encrypted, which means that someone had to leak it. This is the worst thing ever. This is the Trump grab him by the pussy. Okay, we don't have to like what they said. We don't have to like what Trump said. But you know what? It's true. That's how guys talk when no one's around, and they talk with other guys. And mind you, if you have a husband, boyfriend, brother, whomever, a male in your life who's like, I would never, that guy is either A, full of shit, which is most likely, or B, that's a chick. Okay? Because guys say horrible fucking things. I'm sure women say horrible things as well. But guess what? I'm not a chick. I'm not in chick circles, and they probably tone it down a hair if I'm around. But when you're talking about a group of friends in a place where no one else is around, and it's just dudes treat each other fucking horribly, and we absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. It's just part of the gig. It means you're liked. It's like giving you all kinds of shit. It's like giving Merck all kinds of shit for his horrible food takes. He takes it well. We make fun of him. We tell him how much we like him. We come back. It's a little give and take. It's a fun time. Now, you see the dichotomy there of how the left reacts versus the right reacts when any sort of little thing happens. But mind you, this is all just free speech. The thing that Jay Jones said is terrible, but it's not criminal. Now, should he be still running for attorney general? Don't know. That's a him and his party call, and they seem fine with it. Does that mean they want all of us dead? Possibly. Are they willing to do it? I don't know. Let's hope not. Would they care if I drop dead tomorrow because I disagree with them? One, they would probably never know, but two, no, they won't care. So there's that part of it. There's the other part with the young Republicans. Do we actually think that these guys are going to put someone in a gas chamber? No. They're shit posting in a signal chat. That's all they're doing. Now, the other thing that happened, yeah, I guess Merc meant food, not found, but they're primo takes, just like primo cuts of ham that are delicious. The other thing that happened, and I didn't really know that this happened. I was told that this happened. So I have talked about Nick Fuentes before. I don't really know a whole lot about Nick Fuentes other than what people have said about him. I've seen clips. I'm not going to judge somebody by a clip unless that clip involves you committing violence on someone. And even then, I'm going to need the context for this whole thing. So clips are, whatever. If you're judging someone solely based on clips, that's a flaw in your character, and do better. I don't really know much about Nick Fuentes. When I hear things from like corporate media, things that he's a racist, an anti-Semite, this, that, or the other, insert, pejorative here, I do have to kind of pump the brakes on it and go, you guys have been wrong a lot before, and you would probably call me racist and all of the same things you're calling Nick. So I don't know. I didn't seek his content out. I don't really care that much. But he was on part of the problem with Dave Smith, another person that a lot of you think is a rabid anti-Semite, this, that, or the other. Maybe even they think he's racist. I don't know. He's Jewish, probably. I've never heard him say a racist thing. He's a comic, obviously, comic Dave Smith. Whatever. That's not the point. Not here to hash out your feelings about Dave Smith. But the point of this is Dave Smith had Nick Fuentes on his podcast on Part of the Problem. 3 hours, if I remember, worth of podcast in which Fuentes comes off as just a dude who has been, I don't know, I guess he's been podcasting, speaking, what have you, since he was like 18. So 10 years, so he's like 28. Thank God I didn't have a microphone in front of me at 18. That's all I want to say. And I'm sure 99% of you are feeling the same way. I'm glad Twitter didn't exist. Facebook didn't exist. I don't even know that MySpace existed when I was 18. If it did, I didn't have it. And some of the shit we said in AOL Instant Messenger in chat rooms was pretty horrible. And yeah, just glad it didn't exist. So I'm not going to judge Nick Fuentes by things he said when he was 18 years old, unless he still has those same beliefs when he's 28, assuming they were bad, abhorrent, racist, what have you beliefs, okay? So the 3 hours I heard Nick talk, go back and forth, and this was not like some buddy-buddy conversation. It was a very good conversation, but it was kind of adversarial at the same time. But a really good conversation in which both of them just seemed like dudes. Would be pretty cool to hang out with. Nick, I guess, had some about faces about things he had said in the past, which he doesn't still believe. So, that's cool. Bro, thank God you guys didn't have it. Oh my God. Although the footage, no, probably don't want to see that. But the bigger point here is, apparently, after that, by the way, Dave Smith got accused of platforming Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes is way bigger then Dave Smith's podcast, Part of the Problem, which is not a small podcast. But, and Dave makes this point later on in a subsequent episode. His point was Nick Fuentes platformed him. Just because it was his show doesn't mean that it's just like saying that how dare, Joe Rogan platform Donald Trump. I don't know that that was the dynamic there, because that show went wild. And Joe Rogan's got a really big podcast, but he's not Donald J. Trump. Okay, Donald J. Trump is probably the most famous person on the face of this planet, may go down in history for a time of the most famous person ever. I would imagine that there are people in places we've never heard of that know the name Trump, Donald J. Trump. So it's debatable there. I'm sure there were people who had never listened to Joe Rogan, who at least saw extensive clips, possibly listened to the entire podcast he did with Donald J. Trump. So I think Trump, you can make that argument. But, so, Nick Fuentes, I guess, put his, I guess he has a podcast, or his show. He's basically got kicked off everything years ago and had to like self-promote, self-host, do all of the things. So he's done all of this on his own. He's built an organic pirate ship from the ground up, apparently, and can do whatever the hell he wants, and he's a big name. People want him on his show. People talk about him all the time. That's as good as it gets for especially self-promotion. So Fuentes puts his podcast on Spotify. It rockets up to number 1, apparently, and then Spotify takes him off. That's a problem. I have a real problem with that. And I don't even listen to the guy. I don't care to. I mean, I kind of want to now. So there's that dynamic. It's like the Alex Jones effect. Like, I don't know how effective Alex Jones was before he became like a pariah and he got kicked off of X and Facebook and any number of things. And I think he got kicked off YouTube and all of that. I think people sought it out more when that happened. I don't know. But the thing is like, especially, the difference between Fuentes and Alex Jones is Fuentes is under 30. And he's been under 30 for a while. So he has the ear. He's in the club, if you will, of the youngins. The people who will seek it. The people who will be most curious about someone who got banned. It's just like, back in the day, if you wanted to sell more albums, put the explicit content, explicit lyrics on the front of that CD. Yes, I know I'm dating myself. Go fuck yourself. But you put that on there, and it was like, that's a good album. We used to judge albums based on which ones had the explicit lyrics and content sticker on them versus the ones that didn't. You knew if it had it on there, probably a good one. Not 100%, but hey, that's all we had, man. We didn't have the internet. So what you're doing, in effect, is you're making it where people now want to seek out more so than ever Nick Fuentes. He's becoming like, public enemy number 1, the world's most wanted. So now, if you're 18, 19, 20. A good example of this is Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate, no one should even know Andrew Tate's name because he's not talented. He's not really interesting. He's a mile wide but an inch deep worth of interest. It's just like, but he's a name because he got kicked off these things. He created all this controversy and they made him bigger, bigger, bigger. And it's like, well, that guy, he has no redeeming quality as far as I can see. Fuentes is at least like, he's kind of charming when he's talking. He seems to be somewhat educated. He can speak on varying topics with a different take, and he can go in depth on things. I got this just from a 3-hour conversation with Dave Smith. Like, he's not a surface level kind of intellect, if you will, or pundit. Like, there's a little more to the kid. I understand. Apparently now I'm doing a goddamn commercial for Nick Fuentes and his show, a show I've never listened to. But this is what happens when you do shit like that. You take the guy off Spotify for what reason? What reason do you have to take him off of Spotify? Like, you didn't take Joe Rogan off. I understand you owed him money and you probably would have to pay that money, but I don't really understand why you would do that. you're just creating more of the monster. I don't know what a groiper is necessarily. Apparently, it's something like Slipknot, like a maggot to Slipknot, or part of the Kiss Army, if you will. Call back to Ace Frehley. Like it's just the fan base, I guess. I'm not really sure. Again, I don't listen to the kid, but I guess the groipers are a thing, and they travel well, and they ask questions, and perhaps are labeled as anti Semites, probably somewhat justly in some cases, but probably more broadly unjustly. If I have to stick my finger up and, test the weather here and the wind on which way it's blowing and who's an anti Semite and who's not. So there's that. So I don't really understand what you accomplished by doing that. I see Merc. You believe it's his followers. I guess. Okay, so police the followers or turn off comments or something like that. Not coming at you, Merc. That's actually probably a good point. But you can police that stuff. Um, I. His followers are still on there though. Like they could go on the Candace Owens stuff and just troll the shit out of her, right? Like you would kick the followers off who were causing a problem, not the content guy, I would think, but I don't know. I don't work at Spotify. It's a foreign company. Maybe they're falling under the umbrella of the UK where you can't speak about things. I don't know. Um, I don't know. Hmm? Yeah, I'd agree with that. He's got no chin. He's all teeth. So, both of those things, the tech scandal and then the subsequent Nick Fuentes banning from Spotify, has this really weird situation that we find ourselves in which what is free speech? What is the state of speech? If you remember not too long ago, they wanted to do this whole ministry of truth in which they were going to, you know, seek out problematic posts on social media. You remember the singing nutter who was in the head of the ministry of truth, which was a bad idea, but it seemed like a gaslight at the same time. Like, whose bright idea was to name this the ministry of truth? Obviously, we're going to freak out about that. Was the freak out the point? Like, I really don't understand what the point of that. Like, they acknowledged it. They never acknowledged this. So what are they doing on the backside that we don't know about? The other part of this is the whole TikTok sale, ban/sale. I'm not a TikTok guy. I don't care. I don't have it. I don't use it. I don't want to use it. But why was TikTok forced to sell? Am I allowed to even have this conversation of actually why TikTok was forced to sell? Or am I just going to get called an anti-Semite again? Because there's a reason, and it's not the reason they gave you, because from day one, they were a Chinese company. But then all of a sudden, we have a problem. But we didn't have a problem back when Trump had a problem in his re-election year in 2019, 2020 wasn't a problem. But then somewhere in the neighborhood of like, I don't know, October of 2022 and subsequent months after, all of a sudden TikTok became a very big problem. And a whole lot of people in Washington all of a sudden had a real problem, both left and right. And as I've preached many, 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 many times, when the left and the right line up on something, look out. That's not good. Rarely is that ever in the interest of the American people or rights and freedom and liberty. Rarely ever is that those two sides coming together ever in our best interest. You know, you think back to Trump being boosted off or booted off social media. There was a whole lot of people on the left and the right agreeing on that too. I don't think we make enough out of the fact that Donald Trump was banned, as the sitting president was banned off of social media. He had no voice. He couldn't reach the people. He had to go create his own site. Speaking of that, you guys remember Parler? Yeah, me either. That's a great point. Arthur in California. Hundreds of billions of Chinese products arrive on our shore yearly, but TikTok was a problem. Right. See, that's the thing. I hear from other folks, and I don't want to get too sidetracked. I hear from folks in the know, folks militarily, what have you, that China can't even get out of its own way. On the one hand, you'll hear Ben Shapiro talk about how China's economy is basically a paper tiger. It's about to crash. It's a house of cards. Any minute now, the whole economy can just crumble, die a slow, painful, ugly death. And then on the flip side, TikTok is the worst thing ever. We can't have these Chinese doing this, that, or the other, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, which is it, man? Which is it? Are they super strong or are they super weak? You can't be both. It's one or the other. And there's no middle ground really on this. There's no like, just kind of going on doing whatever. There's no real middle ground on that. It's very interesting to me that Shapiro has a problem with TikTok all of a sudden, even though he used social media to get where he is, among other things that we may or may not know about. He had segments where he would use TikTok in in YouTube segments where he saw TikTok people and then made fun of them or agreed with them or whatever. So there's that. I remember him talking about how TikTok was like the best algorithm ever for what you wanted. And then all of a sudden, I don't know, after October of 2022, it was the worst thing ever. It needed to go, needed to be banned, this, that, or the other. So I don't know. Such things. But that's another guy that you need to understand does not believe in freedom of speech. He might say he believes in freedom of speech. He does not believe in freedom of speech at all. He believes in freedom of his speech. He's another guy that wants speech to be policed and somewhat used against you / banned on college campuses. Okay, here's the thing. You're either for speech or you're against speech. There is no, well, I want kids who are in college who are on the right to be able to speak freely, do whatever. But then when the other side speaks freely, does whatever, you're like, well, they got to go. Aren't you doing the same thing? It's just the pistol in the room, and now you have it, so you're going to use it. Okay, so you're just as bad as them. You're not an absolutist on anything. You're not a free speech absolutist. You're not a Second Amendment absolutist. You're not an arms absolutist. So it tells me that you're not an absolutist on anything. You're not an absolutist on, I don't know, Third Amendment, putting soldiers in a house. You're not an absolutist on that. You're not an absolutist against illegal search and seizure. No. Okay? Fair trial, all the different things. So you can't really pick and choose on these things. You're either for them, you're against them. There's no middle ground. Again, there is no middle ground with rights, with liberties, with individual liberty and rights. There's no middle ground. There can't be. You can't say all of these different things and be like, well, in this case, well, in that case. No, there's no middle ground. Look, have any gun you want. I don't care. And then people go, oh, what does that apply to nuclear weapons? Yeah, if you can figure out how to make a fucking nuclear weapon, have at it, pal chief. Go ahead. You're probably way more dangerous than with a fucking knife in your hand than you are with a nuclear. It's so ridiculous. They act like you just go down the street, go down to local Ace Hardware, buy all the shit you need to make a nuclear weapon. It's an insane thing. Oh, is a tank? Is that part of the Second Amendment? Yeah, it is. Because it's just a tractor with a gun on it. I have a tractor. I can put a gun on it. It's just a big gun. You're telling me that I can't take a cannon or a piece of pipe and put it on a tractor and, I don't know, weld up a piece of metal in the front so I don't get hit from the front and then put a cannon on it and fire it? It's just a big gun. That's all it is. I can put a 50 cal on a tractor and be pretty effective. Just saying. I mean, it's such nonsensical topics. Or talking points of like, oh, is this blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it is. It is. Go fuck yourself. Just like me calling someone a piece of shit is free speech. Me telling you that, you know what? I really wish you would fall down and hurt yourself today. It's free speech. I can like you, not like you, indifferent. It doesn't matter. I have the right to say anything I want. Just like Alex Jones had the right to say anything he wanted, is no matter how vile you might have felt that it was or is or whatever, he has every right to say it, and there's nothing you can do about it other than get mad, Karen. That's all you can do. If he comes out and libels or slanders you, that's a different story. It's also a civil matter. The state not getting involved, period. Because that would be a violation of his right to speech, his freedom of speech, freedom of religion. That's the other part with like a Ben Shapiro. You don't believe in freedom of religion. You don't. You absolutely fucking don't. And I know you don't. You've said it a number of times, indirectly, but you said it. You don't agree in freedom of speech. Fuck you. Or freedom of religion. You know, I wish more people would understand, would think more deeply about when someone says hate speech or, words that are hurtful or harmful or this, that, or the other, or you're othering someone or you're dead naming or you're any number of these things. Yeah, humans are pieces of shit, capable of grave atrocities. Speech is not a grave atrocity. It's one of the things that has created the country that you currently live in, whether you love it or hate it. You are more free here than anywhere else. You're free to question your government, yell at your government, petition your government, piss on your government, do whatever. More so here than anywhere else. And if you guys understood what this all really meant and where your rights come from, and what they really mean, and you exercise them more freely and all of the time instead of trying to police your goddamn neighbor because of hate speech, we would be at a much better place as a country as a whole if you understood what the Machiavellian idea is to use words to control you, to control your speech and your thoughts. That's where the state of speech comes in. The state of speech, I wouldn't say it's on life support, but we're losing some beats per minute, okay? This can still flip around, and it is flipping around. We're in a much better place now than we were, say, 2022, when you couldn't say jack or shit. We talk about cancel culture on both sides, and now the woke right is a thing or whatever, if you believe James Lindsay and his retarded takes. But you have all these rise of these different groups and what have you, and really it's just a whole bunch of charlatans who are, again, it's just, you're using speech to control someone else's speech and thoughts. Don't let them do that. When someone says, oh, that's a woke right talking point, go, what's woke right? What does that mean? Give me a definition. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just give me something. And they're like, well, it's like when you use words to convey a political point or position or this, that, or the other, which is basically James Lindsay's explanation when you take all of the fancy words out of it. How dumb does that sound? That's every political movement ever. That's every ideological thing ever. That's every moral stance ever, is to further something you think or your position or a group or a whatever. That guy has to be one of the most retarded retards I've ever seen in my entire life. And people follow him and think he's smart. Like he knows numbers. Great. Good for you. You're a mathematician. You also were a lefty 4 fucking years ago. So all of these people who are like, oh, he's speaking for the right. You guys are idiots. You fell for it. It's not hard to get people to fall for your words. I mean, there's like 80 people listening to this right now. So like, suckers. Just kidding, guys. Love you all. There's the soft tyranny of having the other people around you police your speech and, in polite society. And there's the hard tyranny, for what the UK is doing. And they're going to get the clap back really hard because they're coming down fast and hard with men with guns or billy clubs, in their case, coming in, arresting otherwise fine folks for Facebook posts. It's very wild to see that happen. And we can sit here in America and we can say it's because they gave up their guns. And I think there's some truth to that. But we also have to take a deep, dark look in the mirror from the COVID days. And those of you who got locked down, I was never locked down. I went to work every day. So I didn't, we're in Oklahoma. We just kind of did whatever. I think I wore a mask twice and they were both in a hospital that I wasn't there for the wife. Sometimes you do things. But COVID was a pretty big wake up call. Now I understand most of the lockdowns and all the real hard stuff happened in some deep blue areas, states, what have you, where you probably didn't have guns already. But if they can just lock you in your house and you can't communicate, apparently that was good enough. But we need to take a deep look into the mirror as Americans and understand that we do have a Second Amendment. These things exist on the wall here, and you need to be proficient with them, and you need to understand when to. There might be a time to gather up your buddies and head to the town square, what have you. Um, but we get the soft tyranny, like the tech scandal, where it's like we're going to come out and politically it's going to matter, so you need to police this guy or that guy or what have you, and you better get on it. And it's like we have to push back against the people talking about hate speech, and you can't say that. And, you know, I thought about what my response would be if I were some sort of representative of the GOP and they said, well, what about this tech scandal? What do you think? And my response would have been, the whole thing, including you asking me about it, is retarded, and walked off. Because it is. It's just stupid. It's just a bunch of dudes talking on a Slack channel, talking shit posting, being dudes. It's crazy to me when the corporate media discovers that dudes exist and they're all shocked by how dudes exist and the things that they say. It just makes me laugh. And it's like, have you like never been around anything? I do like the guys who are like, I would never. I've been around and I've never said nor heard. And if I ever did, and it's like, dude, you would. First of all, you're probably lying, but second of all, you've never been around, and no one wants you around. That's why you're the douchebag sitting there with man tan on and makeup, trying to act serious and save our democracy. I don't know. The state of speech needs to get better, and I'm looking at all of you to make it better. You know, we brought back the word retard. We're bringing back the F word. We're bringing them all back. But we can't bring them back without your help, too. You got to pass them along, man. You got to drop the R's. When someone's being an R, you got to call them an R. You just have to. It's almost funnier when you use R, because then people go, what's the R word? It's a little funnier that way. Careful with that N one, though. Still a little hot topic. Try not to say that one. Interested in what everyone thinks about how, you know, you if you've ever let somebody police your speech. Now, there's the time. I'm not saying you treat your grandma with the hard R word or what have you. You know, there's a time and a place to use things, just like there's a time and a place to cuss at people or whatever. You know, there's a time and a place to make a joke. There's a time and a place not to make a joke. I don't recommend making a joke at a funeral, but hey, judge the room. It's up to you on that one. But basically, I'm running out of steam. I'm glad. I think the mic's been working the whole time, so that's a win. I've spoken about everything I wanted to speak about for tonight. I am glad everybody hung out. I'm gonna keep doing these on Fridays. If you're listening on Spotify and the next day you're not live, doesn't really matter unless you want to come hang out on Fridays on X and Rumble. But I'm gonna keep these on Fridays until further notice, mainly because Thursdays there's football games. We got playoff baseball. Thursdays has just become a busy day for me even before that. But Fridays seem to be working out. So without further ado, I thank everybody for hanging out. Until next time, everybody, have a good week. See you then. Take care.